In just a little bit over a week, Toronto FC will start their 2021 campaign. It's not the start to the campaign we wanted. They're going to be starting in Florida. Unfortunately, the Canadian government still isn't allowing cross-border travel for sports, but I have a feeling we'll see that well before the season is done. Toronto FC is starting off in a CONCACAF Champions League match on April 7th against Club Leon. Probably the hardest match they could have drawn in the CONCACAF Champions League, so they are going to be thrown right into the midst of the fire. Predicting what their lineup is going to look like this year is both easy and difficult. Easy because no new players have been brought in, yet also difficult because no new players have been brought in. It's very much a very similar roster as to what we had last season, just with a few parts missing and a few new younger players who may be ready to take the next step coming into this season. Now, with a new coach in Chris Armas and GM Ali Curtis saying that they are prepared to play the kids in order to see what they have this season, and with no new designated player signing as of yet, it seems very much like this season is kind of a let's see what we have in the academy sort of thing for Toronto FC. So expect to see a lot more academy players getting minutes, a lot more young players getting a lot more minutes, which has been a struggle for TFC in the past. But I think by the summer we'll have a good inclination of whether or not this play the kids system is going to work or not. And then in the summer, if things are looking up for us financially, if we're able to move back to Toronto, if we're able to play games in front of fans, then they may be looking to add a few pieces, especially a new designated player, because a new designated player has to be coming. It just hasn't come yet, and I don't think it's going to come by the time the season starts. So to start things off, here is who I think the starting 11 is going to be for Toronto FC this season. I believe we're going to play a sort of 4-4-2, at least that's going to be the fully healthy, all the best players we have sort of scenario going into this season. In net, obviously, Quentin Westberg, he has been our best goalie for the past season and a half. Absolutely fantastic in 2019, pretty solid in 2022. He's the, for sure, #1 starter. On the back end, we don't have a natural left back except for Justin Morrow, but Aro and Larea both traded time at left back last season, so Aro and Larea are going to kind of trade back and forth between starting left back and right back depending on what sort of opposition TFC plays. They're both quite capable on both of the wings and just are two very solid fullbacks. Center backs, again, same as last season. Chris Mavinga, the rock of our defensive core, one of the most underrated players in the league, one of the best defenders in MLS, and then Omar Gonzalez. I'm not overly thrilled about that one. I was hoping TFC would bring in another center back. I think Omar Gonzalez is a great depth option still in MLS, but I'm not quite convinced that he's still a starter. So to have Gonzalez as one of our best options in the starting lineup is a little stressful to me. In the midfield, it's going to be a sort of midfield 4. Our 4 best midfielders, who really should be starting most games, are all also center midfielders, so it's kind of an interesting thing we got going on there. Osorio can play wide, Pozuelo can also swing out wide a little bit, but I think we're going to have some combination in the midfield of Bradley, Osorio, Pozuelo, and Delgado. Bradley and Delgado probably sinking a bit deeper, playing more defensively. Pozuelo being, the center attacking man, he's number 10, he's fantastic. Jonathan Osorio, can also play that more center role that Pozuelo does. He's good in the middle, he can also play out on the left a little bit, so Osorio is a good, useful player in that spot. All 4 of these guys, rocks of Toronto FC's midfield for years now, basically. Delgado, when he was hurt last season, it was very evident. He's one of those players who, he doesn't do anything too flashy, so you don't notice him that much, but goddamn is he not a great footballer and a very useful piece in the Toronto FC midfield. Michael Bradley getting older, but he still is a great leader in the room and on the pitch. I feel like his play time is going to start to go down a bit this season, especially with the emergence of Ralph Priso. I know last year I was saying Liam Fraser, but Ralph Priso actually seems like the real deal. So I think we'll see Priso in the starting lineup quite a bit, and Osorio is just Jonathan Osorio, the most capped TFC player of all time, and he will continue to be regular in the starting 11. And then up front, Ayo Akinola. Huge breakout season last year, very exciting young prospect for Toronto FC, and with him being a free agent at the end of the season, there's already rumors of teams from Europe looking to try and sign him. So this is a huge season for him because if he plays well, he can earn himself a big contract with a big European team. So that's going to drive him to be the best player he can possibly be this year. I suspect last season was just the first step. If Akinola can stay healthy this whole year, I suspect big things are going to come from him. And Jozy Altidore. This is an interesting one. He is one of the highest paid players in the league. He's on year 2 of a 3-year contract, and last season he scored 2 goals. And also, he hasn't really been himself and fully healthy in well over a year and a half since mid-2019. So Jozy Altidore, if he can reclaim any sort of form that he had in the 2018 CONCACAF Champions League, in the 2017 MLS Cup run, heck, even what he was in the earlier half of 2019 when he was just a feasible player in MLS, TFC would be pretty solid on striker. The problem is, in the past year and a half, he's been injured all the time. He's looked physically in pain when he's out on the pitch a lot of the time. It's honestly just painful to watch him play in some of his last few games, just because you feel bad for him, because obviously he really wants to be out there and he really wants to be able to play, but I'm not sure his body can do it anymore. So hopefully with this extended break, with TFC not having played since back in the fall, Jozy Altidore has had time to rest and to recoup and to bring himself back into playing form. But I mean, we know that he's had even injury problems that have prevented him from being called up to the US team in the past few months. So I'm not sure what we're going to get from Jozy Altidore this year, but with the contract that he has, if he's healthy and in the lineup, he has to be starting, because he's getting paid $6 million plus, which is one of the top contracts in MLS. So he has to be in the starting 11, or else that money is just going poof into thin air. And now I'm going to list the subs for each position, ranking them in terms of how often I think they're going to play and how often they're going to get into the lineup. Okay, so I've separated the subs into the positions that they're most likely going to end up in the most. So forwards, wingers, center midfielders, center backs / fullbacks, and goalkeepers. And as you can see, obviously a couple players are going to be needed to be added, because especially in the defensive options for the subs, we are quite thin, especially when it comes to wingbacks. So forwards, I think Achara, terrible injury that took him out for all of last season, and apparently he's not quite fully back yet, but he's a guy who I am really excited for. Was absolutely fantastic in the game against NYCFC last spring before the world changed forever. But he, in that one very limited showing, was great. I think he's a great fast option up front. I think a front two of Achara and Akinola could be deadly in this league. He does have to get fully healthy first, but I think he's for sure our number one option behind Akinola and Altidore up front. Patrick Mullins, we know all about him. He's still here. He's just kind of here. He'll get playtime because we give him playtime for some reason. And Jordan Perruzza, very exciting young talent. I'm very excited to see him. Just signed a first-team contract of TFC, which starts this season. He was excellent for TFC 2 years ago and was great on loan in the USL Championship for the few games that he played there last season. I think he is going to add quite a bit to this TFC team if he gets some solid play time. And honestly, at the beginning of the season, with Achara still being out injured, and heck, even Altidore maybe being out injured, heck, even Akinola might be having some injury problems, we could see quite a bit of Perruzza very early on in this season, which excites me. Guys who can play wing, all very solid options, but not quite starters in MLS yet for a few of them, or kind of falling out of being starters in MLS for a couple of others. First, I think Jayden Nelson. He had his first real look with the TFC first team last season, and I think we're going to see a lot more of Jayden Nelson this year. He's a guy who I think big things are coming from, and I'm going to be really excited to see him get into this lineup a lot. He could be a full starter by the end of the season. That would not surprise me at all. Nick DeLeon, Tsubasa Endo, we know what they are. Solid depth options for TFC. Have come in clutch a few times, can both score a couple of goals. They're solid pieces. Jahkeele Marshall-Rutty, the 16-year-old. I am so excited for him. In terms of expectations, he is probably the best player ever to come out of the TFC Academy. He came on as a sub for one game last season and looked quite good. I think it was a game where we were blowing out 5-0 and he had our only shot of the game. He is a fantastic raw talent right now. I'm really hoping we see quite a bit of him. I think we are going to see quite a bit of him this season. And he really has potential to be one of the best players MLS has ever produced, probably one of the best players Canada has ever produced, if all the hype about him is true. So hopefully we see quite a bit of Marshall-Rutty this season. Hopefully he proves that he's good enough for us to see quite a bit of Marshall-Rutty this season, because he could be just a major player for TFC going forward, or even for the Canadian national team going forward. Jacob Schaffelberg, I like him. Last season we didn't see as much of him. He's a solid player, good potential. I'm not convinced he's fully MLS level yet. I do really like his game, but I'm not convinced that he can actually produce in MLS. He's had some great chances, but just has yet to be able to score a goal or find his finish in MLS. I think a loan to Halifax would be hugely beneficial for him. If he went to the CPL for a year, he'd be a fan favorite and he'd tear up the CPL. But right now, he's still with TFC, and I hope we give him some solid playtime this season, because what he had last year was not enough, and so we need a little more Jacob Schaffelberg to see if he really is an MLS player or not. Erickson Gallardo, another guy who, how is he still here? In 2019, he came to Toronto FC on target allocation money, was recently, before that, called up to the Venezuelan national team for a friendly, and since then his career has just gone off a cliff. At one point last season was subbed in and then subbed off in the same game. He really just has not had it at all since joining Toronto FC. Barely plays. If he's getting put in, it's basically, when he was put in last season, it was because this team was ravaged by injuries and Greg Vanney was literally throwing in the towel, putting Erickson Gallardo on the field. He just does not look very good in MLS, doesn't look comfortable at all with the team. Maybe with a new coach in Chris Armas, it can re-spark his career, but really I have not seen anything from him yet that would suggest that he is a viable player in MLS, which is unfortunate, but that's just kind of where he is right now. And Griffin Dorsey, who was our super draft pick back in 2019, we haven't seen much of him, and what we have seen hasn't really convinced me that he's anything too special, but he could be a useful depth piece for this team. I don't think we'll see very much of him, maybe an odd substitute appearance here or there. So my expectations for him are low this season, and I don't think we're going to see that much of him, so it's not really of too much importance. Center mids. Only 3 official center mids, and they're all more CDM type players. We really don't have a set center attacking midfielder besides Osorio or Pozuelo sort of guy, so that's interesting. Center mids, but again, like more defensive center mid guys. Ralph Priso, last season, joined the team in September. Absolutely fantastic. He looks like the real deal. He looks like everything I thought Liam Fraser was going to be, and more. Priso is a guy who is hopefully going to be a part of the Toronto FC center midfield for a long, long time. I could see him being kind of like the next Marky Delgado. Heck, he could even be the Michael Bradley replacement that we were hoping Fraser was again. So Ralph Priso was only 18 last season. Fantastic, huge hype for him. I have a feeling we're going to see a lot of him, and he's going to be in and around the starting 11 quite a bit. Liam Fraser, I think this guy needs a move to just get a change of scenery and help his career out. Although maybe a new coach in Chris Armas is actually good for him, and that could do that spark. Last season, if you remember, I was all aboard the Liam Fraser train. I thought Michael Bradley's out to start the season. Fraser is going to come in and just dominate, because I had the 2019 Canada versus USA game at BMO Field where Canada won 2-0, watching Liam Fraser play that game, which he was excellent in my head. And I haven't seen that from Liam Fraser since then. Maybe this season he'll have the season that I thought he was going to have last season, but to me, he started the year as our number 3 lower midfielder behind Bradley and Delgado, and then he ended the year as our number 5 lower midfielder because both Osorio had become a guy who could be played in the lower end of the midfield, and Ralph Priso had passed him. So last year was a disaster for Liam Fraser in terms of where he ended up on the team sheet. And honestly, this year he comes in already behind Priso and with Noble Okello knocking on the door. So the first 1 or 2 appearances this season are going to be make or break for Liam Fraser. Noble Okello, big, young, center defensive midfielder, can also kind of play center back. Went on loan to HB Koji, where he joined Rocco Romeo for a little bit in the fall. He's a solid player that I'm pretty excited for. I have a feeling he'll get a solid amount of playtime this season if Play the Kids is truly what we're going to do. I'm quite excited to see what we see from him. Center backs / fullbacks. Now, first off, our only fullback that's not Aro or Larea is Justin Morrow. So obviously someone needs to be brought in. Our first game's in a week and a half. Someone, please sign anyone, literally anyone. We need another fullback, because if one guy gets injured, we're not looking at a very good situation right there. So Morrow obviously is going to get a bunch of play time, but I have him listed as 3rd because he's also getting older. He's injured quite a bit. So he'll get a lot of play time, but should he really be getting the play time is a bit of a question. Julian Dunn, I think, is going to be our 3rd center back this season, possibly even Paz Gonzalez as our 2nd. He won the CPL Young Player of the Year award with Winnipeg Valor last season, was fantastic in the CPL Island games, Very excited to see him finally break into the Toronto FC first team. We haven't been able to really find or develop a young center back at all recently, so hopefully Julian Dunn can actually break that streak and get into this team. Eric Zavaleta. Vanny is gone, but nephew remains. I was so shocked when Zavaleta re-signed with us. I was honestly convinced he was going to go to the LA Galaxy, but nope, here he is. I guess, the team's used to him. He's on a cheaper contract now. He's no longer getting paid, I think, the well over $300,000 amount. That was mind-boggling that he was getting paid beforehand. We're used to him. He knows the team. I guess the guys like him if he's still here. He's an okay fourth center back option, maybe fifth center back option, depending on where Rocco Romeo comes in. Still on loan right now, but does he come back from loan and immediately slot into this team? I think he probably could get a couple appearances over the summer once he gets back. But as for right now, I think he's more of the fifth center back just because A, he's not here, and B, we loaned him out knowing he'd be gone at the start of the season. So that doesn't really hold huge hopes for how much we think we're actually going to use him this year. And goalkeepers, obviously, backup keeper Alex Bono. Solid guy, won MLS Cup in 2017. He's a pretty solid backup goaltender in MLS. And Silva, third goalie, was there last season. We never saw him last season, so I really don't think we're going to see him this season unless Westberg and Bono both somehow get injured at the same time, which, knock on wood, hopefully they will not. Honestly, I like play the kids. I think Nelson's going to be in a lot. I think Priza's going to be in a lot. I think we're going to see Perusa and Achara quite a bit. And Marshall Ruddy, really excited to see how much we see of him. We need more defenders. Literally, one more center back that can be an actual starter, because right now I'm convinced of one starting center back in MLS, and that's Mavinga, and then another fullback or another two fullbacks, so that if someone of Aro or Larrea gets hurt, or when Justin Morrow inevitably gets hurt, we actually have someone to sub in to the wingbacks, because I don't want to be sitting here and watching Noble Okello out on left back or Jacob Schaffelberg out on left back, because I could actually see that happening if things don't go well and we don't have any more fullbacks. Yeah, it's been like 5 months and we've signed absolutely no one, losing a few guys. So a little stressful trying to figure out who goes where in this roster. New designated player should be coming at some point this summer too. I would assume it would be a striker, maybe a winger. We'll see. So yeah, that's the roster that I think TFC is going to go with in the 2021 MLS season. Let me know what you think of this roster in the comments. Let me know what you think the starting 11 will be down below, and let me know how you think Toronto FC will do. And if you like this video, hit like. If you want to see more of my stuff, hit subscribe. Follow me on Twitter. Link is down below in the description, and I will see you next time.